Welcome to the Week 3 DFS Jam here on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel. I'm your host, Peter Overzet, and this week we are going to mix it up a little bit and get out my randomizer wheel. And one of the things we're going to do here is kind of force myself into some interesting builds in the Battle Royale on Underdog. And one of the reasons for this is both it's fun to get pushed in new directions, but also because I actually think it helps illustrate how tethered we can get to ADP and chalk constructions over and over again if we're not careful. And if you're drafting a lot of these teams, I do think it's really important to make sure you're varying your builds. You know, the way I describe it is a lot of times we think about like what's optimal on a slate. And we do this for best ball too, right? We say like, oh, elite QB, there's too much opportunity cost or whatever. And we can do that on a Battle Royale slate as well. We can say like, oh, you got to get one of these 3 top tight ends. Otherwise your lineups aren't going to look good overall. But that doesn't mean you should have 100% exposure to the elite tight ends. And I noticed that if I go into a draft without a plan, I'm often kind of duplicating what I think is optimal over and over again, which is fine if you're doing a couple of drafts, but ultimately not ideal if you're building out a large portfolio of teams. So we're going to let some people trickle in to the chat here. And I'm going to put a few things on the wheel here right off the gate. And I want to get some suggestions from you guys as well. And you'll kind of see kind of what I'm thinking based on a few of these that I put up here. And then we'll do some drafts where I spin the wheel and have to do what it says. So like one example would be take 2 players with an ADP of 35 or higher. So this would be getting into kind of deep scroll territory here as far as getting 2 pieces that aren't drafted a ton in the contest. We could also do some things where it was like last 2 picks, RB. So this would be no taking running backs early in the first 4 rounds. And we could do a few of these like last 2 picks. Let's see, what would be a fun one? We could do wide receiver. We could do the inverse of that. We could do, you know, one thing that I think happens if you're in autopilot a lot is you're always stacking in the obvious direction. So you take Jamar Chase, or that's a bad example now that Joe Burrow isn't playing. But let's say you take CeeDee Lamb and then you draft Dak Prescott. But what drafters in the Battle Royales tend to not think creatively enough on is doing the back stacks, right? So you take Dak Prescott and then do CeeDee Lamb. So let's say last 2 picks, QB wide receiver back stack there. So the QB first, the wide receiver after them. If you guys have any other suggestions for fun things, elite onesies, that's a good one. I like that. Thank you, Jordan. Elite onesies. So that's for people who don't know, that would be an elite QB and tight end, which can get a little tricky just based on the slate and how many available there are. If you guys got any other questions or suggestions to add the wheel, let me know. We could call this one, let's call this like a rainbow flop. No teammates. This is another good one because I think we tend to overstack and overcorrelate in these Battle Royale drafts where we're really trying to hit perfection. So getting a naked QB, building out, trying to hit the one-offs from the best game environments, I think is another kind of fun way to build. So we'll do a rainbow flop there. The other one I do sometimes on the flip side of that, I think there are some correlations that fly under the radar a little bit. You know, we're all used to doing quarterback, wide receiver pairings, but sometimes I like a running back tight end pairing. And it has to be on the right offense for this to work, right? But historically, we have seen specific pairings on really condensed offenses hit in a big way. You know, for that year that Devon Achane was a rookie, it was like Mostert or Achane paired with Tyreek Hill or Waddle. You know, those 2 would get home there. There was a lot of like Jahmyr Gibbs, Sam Laporta pairings at times. So running back tight end pairing is kind of a fun one we could do there. This is a great one, Jordan. And I actually wrote about this in this week's DFS column that should be going up on Fantasy Life here shortly. I don't believe it is published yet. But Jordan says late pick swaps, possibly Ladd, Jaden, Warren, Q-tag players. I love this one. Min 1 Q-tag player. And before we even put that on the wheel, I will just kind of explain it because I know not everybody watching this is super familiar with how the Q tag system works on Underdog. But I'll show you here. If we go into the ranks for this week and we look at some of these players, and I think Jaden Daniels is a great example this week, and I wrote about him in this thing. So he has an ADP of 31.9. He has the Q tag. Now, if Jaden Daniels didn't have the Q tag, if he was just completely healthy heading into this game, he would have an ADP in the top 10. He would be the QB1 overall on this slate. Yes, ahead of Jalen Hurts, who is behind the most boring offense in football right now. So I feel very comfortable saying that Jaden Daniels would be a top 10 pick. You are able to get him at 31.9 or later in drafts right now because of this Q tag, because people are worried that he's not going to play. But in these battle royale contests, that's a mistake. It's not saying there shouldn't be a discount on Jaden Daniels. It's just saying the opportunity cost for you to select him is basically nil. And the reason for that is if you select Jaden Daniels and he plays, guess what? You just got a top 10 asset at a price after ADP 30. Now, if he doesn't go, well, guess what? You're not stuck with a zero. You are going to get swapped to the best available quarterback who is not selected in the draft that you took Jaden Daniels. If you set your ranks, you will get your best available quarterback that was not selected in that draft. If you don't set your ranks, you will get the best available quarterback based on ADP that was not selected in that draft. So if you think about this, if you're deciding in round 6, because none of the other drafters want Jaden Daniels, and you're deciding between Jordan Love and Jaden Daniels, just take Jaden Daniels, because guess what? If he doesn't go, the player you're going to swap to, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, Michael Penix, Drake May, we can go down the list. It's a really long, flat tier at quarterback this week. You're not sacrificing that much. So the risk, pivoting to a swap does not outweigh the reward, which is getting a huge windfall value on a guy like Jaden Daniels. Jordan also mentions Ladd. I think there's some fun things you can do with that angle as well, where you take Ladd. If he plays, great. You're probably getting a little bit of a discount. If he doesn't, guess what? You can set your swap priority to another Chargers, preferably Keenan Allen or Quentin Johnston, both who will likely go undrafted in these contests and who would see their outlook improve because Ladd wasn't playing. So there's lots of fun ways you can play these Q tag angles in here, and it's definitely something that needs to be part of your strategy if you're trying to play these battle royale contests at a high level. Josh says, I've been grabbing McBride with Warren, so double high-end tight end. That has to be different. Now, this one makes me queasy. Because looking at the data, it is very, very clear that 2 tight end builds are pretty bad, historically speaking. Even looking at sim data, so Nerdy Tenor over at the In-Game Syndicate, he runs sims on these slates. And the data for 2 tight ends that he found for last week, it was 0.1% of your lineup should have them. So if you're building 150 lineups, that's 0.15 teams that have 2 tight end. So the data is pretty bad on elite tight ends. Now, here's how it would work, I think, essentially. I think you'd need to get 2 of the elite tight ends. So for me personally, if I were even to entertain this thought, which I don't really want to entertain, I'd want to have 2 of Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, and Tucker Kraft. Because I think what you're trying to say is that one of these guys scores like an elite wide receiver. You essentially need 25 plus points from McBride, Bowers, or Kraft for this to work out, because there's going to be a ton of wide receivers who probably score, or not a ton, but a handful of wide receivers who score over 25 plus points. So you need them to perform like that. And then your second tight end is essentially functioning like a normal tight end, scoring 10 to 15 points. So to me, if I were to pull that off, I would want 2 of McBride, Bowers, Kraft, because for me, that is really where the tier is this week at tight end. And I can actually go and pull up our projections here at Fantasy Life as well. And this can kind of give us kind of a clue as far as how we think about these players here, and make sure that my gut instinct here is correct. So let me see here. I'm going to look at sort by projection here. Looks like we might not have everything populated right now, because I am only seeing Brock Bowers in our projections right now. So I am not going to be able to fact check this. I would want to use the FanDuel anyways, because it's the 0.5 PPR scoring, but I can check back later and see if those projections are updated. But I say we spin the wheel here and see if we can get underway with drafting. And as you guys are trickling in you have any other suggestions you want me to add to the wheel, feel free. All right, right off the rip here, we got elite onesie quarterback here, and we'll see what we can do from an elite onesie perspective. The reason this is really hard this week is, by my definition, Jalen Hurts is really the only quarterback who I think has an elite onesie profile. But I do think Jaden Daniels can also fit that bill. And so Jaden Daniels, to me, would be the other guy. And since he's cheap, that's actually going to be helpful. And then with the 101 here, if I'm going to get one of the elite onesies at tight end, we're looking at McBride, Bowers, and I am including Kraft. So I think I can wait until pick 12, because by ADP, McBride, Bowers, Kraft, one of them should be there. So I think we can just grab a running back here at the top. And from there, we can figure out how we want to play this. GM, Troy. Thank you to everybody tuning in. I know this is a new show on the channel, so it'll take us a little bit of a time to build this into everybody's routine. But I'm going to be here every Thursday at noon Eastern, and we'll mix it up. Wanted to use the randomizer wheel this week, but if you guys ever have ideas or suggestions, let me know. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson here, 101. Don't think that is crazy. You know, if I go look at our DVP tool here, and again, it's early, right? We only have 2 weeks of data so far, but if we look at the team giving up the biggest boost, it is the Panthers right now. They give up 8.6 additional fantasy points to opposing running backs. They're allowing 28.5 points per game PPR, 26.4 PPR is just as good as it gets there. Yep. Best ball on call says that Bijan feels tough to top versus Carolina. He's just going to have such a high touchdown expectation there. There's basically nothing bad to say about the spot here for Bijan Robinson. You're lucky because we don't have just hardcore battle royale conversations in here. I can hit some start sit questions. Fletch says PPR league with a flex decision, ETN, Pollard, Zay Flowers, or Tyreek. I don't know how you sit Zay Flowers right now, man. Just an absolute elite target share. I think you could say that someone like ETN has maybe a little bit higher floor, but even I don't even know if I'm comfortable saying that. All right, we are back here. Let's do this. We're talking about the elite onesies. I think I'd like to play Jaden Daniels. Let's do Brock Bowers, and we'll basically kind of play a mini correlation from that game. We'll do Jaden Daniels if possible, and then Brock Bowers. And you know what? I'm just not even going to mess around with it. I do like some of these players here, JSN, Nico, but I'm just going to go ahead per the challenge. I'm going to lock it up now to make sure I complete it. And we'll go with Jaden Daniels and Brock Bowers. I will complete my elite onesie challenge here. And Bijan, and then we'll figure out the rest here at the running back and wide receiver positions. Jordan says, feel like projections I've seen are down on Atlanta, probably play volume concern, could just disperse the scoring across 5 guys. Yeah, and I think the overall explosiveness of the offense just hasn't been there. You know, Michael Penix isn't taking shots downfield. We haven't really seen Drake London get going. But, man, the Carolina is just such a get-right spot for these teams that I don't really want to overthink this. One of the reasons I was so excited to draft players from this division, even in season-long best ball and season-long, is just because the defenses are bad. You get the dome games, you get the warm weather games. It really is kind of the perfect storm for fantasy production here. Eli referencing a show that I said I was enjoying on my YouTube channel, Task, the new kind of mystery crime drama on HBO with Mark Ruffalo. It is very good. And yes, I'm caught up on Task. Eli says, I think you missed your true calling of being in a biker gang with the amount of grit on display. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. PPR, pick one, Sutton or Wan'Dale Robinson. I can't believe how quickly we are here. I will still say Sutton. I think those pendulums are very likely to cut back and forth there. Wan'Dale Robinson due for some regression, not in a shootout game against the Cowboys. And Sutton, while I'm very excited about Troy Franklin, I do think he is still the clear wide receiver one there. All right, we are back on the clock here. What should we do? You know who I think is due for some regression, some positive regression here is Mike Evans. He's coming off an 11 target game. Mike Evans is a guy historically in these battle royales we draft at the 1-2 turn. And so we're getting a pretty massive discount on him here. Let's also go ahead and get another running back here. I think we can do Chase Brown. I think we're probably overreacting a little bit here. When Jake Browning took over for the Bengals in 2023, Joe Mixon, who was the running back at the time, his production actually went up, which kind of makes sense, right? That they leaned on the run more once Jake Browning was installed as the quarterback. They weren't nearly as pass heavy. So I think the reaction to Chase Brown is probably a little bit overblown. The usage is still going to be good there, and he should actually see a couple more touches a game. So we'll grab Chase Brown. And so far, this team, we have Jaden Daniels, Bijan Robinson, Chase Brown, Mike Evans, Brock Bowers. More trade questions. Would you trade Etienne and Debo for James Cook? My other running back is McCaffrey. Would I trade Etienne and Debo for James Cook? It would honestly depend on how strong your wide receiver room is. I think there's a little bit of, I don't want to say noise, but I think you're buying a little bit high on James Cook. He is going to have some down games this year. It probably won't be this week. It probably won't be this week against the Dolphins, considering the Bills are 12-point favorites. I think that's a fair trade. If your wide receiver room is solid, I don't mind upgrading Etienne and Debo to James Cook. All right, let's see what we're going to do with our last pick. It obviously has to be a wide receiver here. It's crazy. I mean, again, I wasn't planning on doing the teammate pairing here, but I am going to take Drake London. I think it's a good conversation to have. Sometimes ADP fallers in Battle Royale can trick us, and they seem like they're more valuable than they really are. But Drake London with an ADP of 18.6 sliding all the way to pick 36, that's a pretty good value. I've already made a bet on Atlanta in this game, and so I'm going to go ahead and take Drake London here. Jaden Daniels, Bijan Robinson, Chase Brown, Mike Evans, Drake London, Brock Bowers. So we play the Q-tag game. We get our elite onesies. We get a teammate pairing on Carolina, which I like here. And then we have Chase Brown and Mike Evans as one-off plays. All right, let's spin the wheel here and get another suggestion for this draft. Last two picks are going to be a quarterback, wide receiver, back stack. Quarterback, wide receiver, back stack. So this means I'll be taking my quarterback in round 5, and I'll be taking a pass catcher with them in round 6. So we can, we'll hop in a draft, and we can kind of look at what would be some good options for that. I kind of would like to be outside the top 6 here. I do think Herbert and Keenan Allen is one I like a lot. Penix. I said wide receiver, didn't I? Did I say wide receiver? Yeah, so not Penix and Kyle Pitts. Kyler Murray with Marvin Harrison, but that doesn't sound fun. What would be another good one here? I think Bo Nix with one of the Denver pass catchers would certainly work. That would work. Let's look at some of the other wide receivers here who go late that we could potentially secure here. A lot of the backup quarterbacks I just don't think are really in play on this slate. Tyrod Taylor. I guess maybe Carson Wentz I could see on some Jefferson stuff. But there's not a lot to like there. Should I trade away Breece Hall for Chase Brown PPR? That's a pretty fair trade as well. Full point PPR, you are going to get more. You are going to get more pass catching from Breece. I'd probably just hold on to Breece, honestly. That's a tough one, though. I really don't feel strongly. I wish I had a stronger take for you on that. I don't. There's definitely holes in both of them. I think the Breece now has a higher ceiling just overall, but there's going to be probably more week-to-week volatility. Chase Brown, probably a more consistent amount of touches, but the offense, I think, has maybe less upside now with Browning. Yeah, that's a good suggestion, playing the other side of that game. And I think, we saw it last week, right, with Malik Neighbors and Russell Wilson. These alpha wide receivers who earn a ton of targets can still, essentially pull their quarterback along for the ride, even if it doesn't feel good. So my last two picks will be a quarterback, wide receiver, back stack. I guess we're just going to take Bijan again. I don't think it's insane to take CMC first, but we are going to take Bijan Robinson again here at 102. Let's see some other back stacks we could potentially do here. I don't think like a Jacoby Myers would be crazy. We could do the Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin thing as well. The Danny Dimes to Michael Pittman, I think, is always in play. Another good one would be Jordan Love to Matthew Golden. We still have yet to see the Packers get pushed. They've been so efficient that it does really feel like there's an explosion game if they ever get pushed. Let's go ahead and take Bucky here. Because I know that I'm going to be going quarterback, wide receiver with my last picks, I will go ahead and grab Bucky here. And then I will continue to grab Brock Bowers as well. Sorry for the now we've duped two of the first three picks across these two drafts, but I'm going to be pretty into buying these discounts on Brock Bowers specifically. We can go look at his utilization. He obviously headed into that game banged up. Let's go to the season stats and look here for tight ends overall. So his utilization report score is obviously lower than we've seen it here in previous years at 81. That's number 8 on the season. And the main thing that people have been panicking on are these routes, right? You see his routes are lower than all of the other guys ahead of him, but his targets per route run, 23%. The target percentage, the ADOT's really good. The highest ADOT of any of these tight ends here. Always nice when you have a good downfield role. And I think the Raiders, right? They're messing around right now. They're not giving G&T the full role. They're, letting, Dylan Laube and Zamir White come in on third downs. They're screwing around right now. When they get serious, we know there's the explosion spot for these guys here. All right, we're going to set up our back stack after this, right? But we'll go ahead. We can grab Devontae Adams. I mean, Adams coming off another monster game. His usage has been awesome. We can go look at the utilization for him. I mean, I'm guessing he had one of the highest utilization scores in just, if we look at just week 2 here. Week 2 usage, it was Rome Odunze at the top, then Jamar Chase, then Neighbors, then Adams. And they were actually all tied for a utilization report score of 98. Just incredible usage there. 91% of the routes, 39% targets per route run, 39% of the targets, nice ADOT, solid air yards. finishes ninth in PPR, 22.6 points. So Devontae Adams is going to be more expensive than this going forward. All right, let's figure out our back stack now. I kind of like the Herbert and then going with a Chargers wide receiver. Let's do Justin Herbert, and then we'll figure out which Chargers wide receiver we want to take here. We can put Ladd, Keenan, and QJ in the queue. Was offered Olave for Cup. Yes, I would snap accept Chris Olave. Would much, much rather have him than Cooper Kupp. Should I trade Kenneth Walker for Gene T if I'm 0-2 in my league? If you're 2-0, if you're 1-1, I don't care what your record is. I would trade Kenneth Walker for Ashton Gene T. Absolutely. Kenneth Walker had a good game last week, but is still in a full-blown timeshare with Zach Charbonnet. And even if he sees more work, Gene T's kind of full season outlook is still just much, much better. When you guys have these questions too, I highly recommend coming in, and I'll do it after I make this selection. So here's the thing. I'm going to do Ladd here because if Ladd is ruled out, I'll just swap to Keenan Allen. I'll move Keenan Allen high up on my rank. So I'll do my back stack, Herbert to Ladd. And you can kind of consider this a placeholder. You can consider this a placeholder here. Best Ball on Call talking about whatever wide receiver Surtain doesn't shadow. You know, the thing about both Ladd and Keenan Allen is they move those guys around the formation enough that I'm not super worried about that. And I never want to be like overly precise with it just because it's a really hard thing to actually nail down. But it is worth noting that obviously Patrick Surtain is one of the shutdown corners in the league. But I was just going to go here and show you a thing that you can do when looking at these trade questions. What I would do if I was in your spot, I'd go here. I'd say Genty. I'd say Walker. Let me see what the usage actually says. Look at this comparison here. So Genty's usage UR score is 70 right here. 70. Kenneth Walker's 51. 71% of the snaps for Gene T, 38% for Kenneth Walker. Has way more rush attempts, running more routes. They're similar targets, way more rush attempts, more long down and distance, more in the 2-minute drill. So yeah, Kenneth Walker had that big game, but the underlying usage is way more favorable for Gene T. And the thing is like, he still has room to see his role grow, like pretty significantly. What do I think about Troy Franklin? I love Troy Franklin. I think he's awesome. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be the same every week where, you know, he is that clearly the wide receiver one. I do think that's still Cortland Sutton, but there is room in this offense for a number 2 to have a significant role. Like if we look at week 2 here, like this isn't going to hold, right? Look at this, 32% of the targets for Troy Franklin, 14%. But if we look at an average of weeks 1 and 2, now we're getting closer here. Sutton at 20%, Franklin at 23%. But I think Franklin has clearly established himself as the 2 in this offense. Now, could that change as the season progresses? I do really think Pat Bryant is going to see his role expand. I think Pat Bryant's going to be a major player in this offense down the stretch, but how long that takes with a coach like Sean Payton, who is notorious for slow playing his rookies, it could take a while. But I think Troy Franklin's role is pretty secure right now. Appreciate that, sir. Yeah, if you guys are watching, make sure you subscribe to the channel. There's a ton of great videos on here. I'm just doing one show a week on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel, but there's the ranking show. There's the immediate reactions following Sunday night with Dwayne and Ian. I was just listening to their utilization report show earlier this week. So many great shows on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel. You can subscribe. You can also get them in audio form as well. I like taking a lot of the shows on the go there with the Fantasy Life podcast feed. All right, let's spin the wheel and get another draft going here. And if you guys have any other suggestions to add to the wheel, challenges you'd like me to try, drop them in the chat. All right, this one's fun. Take 2 players with an ADP of 35 plus. So we can look here as I scroll down, 35 plus. So that's going to be, we're talking Zach Ertz, Breece Hall, Kyler Murray, Keenan Allen, Kyron Williams, Travis Etienne, Garrett Wilson, Bill, Cortland Sutton, McLaurin, etc. So this one is getting a little creative with those last 2 picks. Dobbins or Omarion Hampton start sit. It's a good one. That's a good one. Do you know what I would do here? I would head over to our rankings and I would see what our crew is thinking here. Let's see. Where do we have these guys? RJ, see, I knew it was a tough question, right? When I don't have an immediate answer, I know it's close. And then what do I see here right away? RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, back to back in our consensus ranks right here. So you can flip a coin. I'd probably, or sorry, you're talking Hampton, not Harvey versus Dobbins. My bad. Yeah, we have Hampton higher. We have Hampton higher here. And Dwayne wrote about him in the utilization report. Obviously, Denver is a tough defense, but we just saw Jonathan Taylor have a ton of success against them. So, yeah, I wouldn't be fully scared off by that matchup. And Omarion Hampton, I think, is just going to have a better overall role. With J.K. Dobbins, you're kind of touchdown dependent right now. All right, so we are going to take 2 players with an ADP of 35 plus. We have the 105 in this one. If you guys like the Battle Royale content, I do a couple other shows about Battle Royale stuff. First of all, there's the column that I mentioned that'll go up on Fantasy Life hopefully later today. I do a show at 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays on my channel. It's called the Battle Royale Bash. And if you're a YouTube member on my channel, you drop a hashtag in the chat, I spin a wheel, and you guys get to pop on the stream and draft teams with me. It's very fun to meet a bunch of people from the community and get some other creative ideas. And then on Fridays, I do a show with the Badge Bros called Off and on the Clock. And we do a full slate breakdown going, position by position, our favorite sleepers. We look at some of the small field contests, some of the large field, the 12-person strategy as well. And we build some pick'ems. So all kinds of underdog Battle Royale content. All right, we are back on the clock. We'll go ahead and take Barkley here. We haven't had a 1-5 yet. So we'll take Barkley. What's on your wheel list now? How's draft a 1-1-3-1? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, on the list right now, we have last 2 picks, RB, last 2 picks, wide receiver, a rainbow flop, so no teammates, a running back, tight end pairing, min 1 Q tag player. We'll do a 1-1-3-1 build there, ensuring we get 3 wide receivers. All right, we are back here on the clock. Let's go Trey McBride this time. We have 2 Bowers. Let's get a McBride in here. So we'll go Barkley and McBride. I still like Bucky a lot there. Bowers. I mean, Rome being ahead of Bowers, that one's tough, right? That one's tough. It's the game of the week. It has the highest total. It's the only total on the main slate. Cowboys, Bears, over 50. Rome Odunze's usage has been outrageous. We go and look at the week 2 usage there in the utilization report. Just incredible stuff there from Rome Odunze. Even on the season, he's number 2 overall. However, man, I still have a hard time with that price. But maybe I shouldn't. I'll be interested to actually dig into some projections and see how projections are handling Rome. But my gut feel is his price is a little frothy, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, things swing back to DJ Moore, or for them to finally start to get some of the rookies involved a little bit. And he's running hot on touchdowns too, right? 3 touchdowns in 2 games. Even if he continues to see a massive target share, he's going to hit some regression there. But yeah, it's just, I don't know if he should be ahead of a guy like Mike Evans, who's done it for an entire decade. That's kind of where I'm at. But the game environment does kind of push me back to thinking, hey, maybe you need to reconsider that take. So my last 2 picks are going to be with an ADP of 35 plus. So I need to decide what I want to do here. Jalen Hurts goes. So one of those will probably be a quarterback. Let's go ahead and do Josh Jacobs. This was another guy Dwayne highlighted as a buy low in the utilization report. His utilization is really strong. I'll go to the utilization report here. And buy low targets, he has Brian Thomas and Josh Jacobs. Through 2 games, Jacobs is averaging 14.2 fantasy points. Oops, I'm back on the clock, and then we can talk about that later. Let's see. We could do Dak. All right, let's do Dak here. Let's do Dak, and then we'll have some fun with 2 wide receivers with an ADP of 35 or lower here. So we're going to do a naked Dak Prescott here, which is not bad in these battle royales. It's one of those things where we often force stacks, but it's not something that we should always be doing. There's nothing wrong with having Dak with Pickens or Lamb or anything, but specifically in these offenses where there are 3 to 4 playmakers and the ball can get spread around, the reason a play like this can work is because Dak Prescott can throw for 30, and you could have scenarios where Lamb scores 18, Pickens scores 16, Jake Ferguson scores 12, and none of them score enough to be in the optimal lineup, but Dak Prescott is the QB1 on the slate because he goes for 30 points. And so this is another one where it's nice to force yourself out of your comfort zone, because if you're always in your comfort zone, you're going to always select George Pickens here. And again, I'm not saying that's a bad selection. It's more just illustrating that we want to be balancing our stacks with some naked quarterbacks as well. And now I have to look for who are 2 wide receivers with ADPs of 35 or higher. I really want to fudge this and do DJ Moore. I do think DJ Moore, to make the best possible lineup, if I am doing naked QBs, I want to play that game environment going crazy, right? I want to play that going crazy. I wish I got this reference. I think I'm like barely average Trey McBride in my best ball exposures, but I appreciate the thought that I wish I did kind of have more McBride. Let's do DJ Moore. I appreciate best ball and call allowing me to fudge it. I want to build the best possible lineup here. So we will do that. And then we can pick another wide receiver here, ADP 35 or lower. Let's do... Probably not going to force any correlation stuff. Let's play Terry McLaurin. This could be another one too. If Jaden plays, that's a big boon for him. If not, I think Marcus Mariota can connect with him on some deep balls. Actually, no, let's do Cortland Sutton. We already talked about how we think the pendulum is going to swing here back in his direction. We'll go Cortland Sutton. So we get 2 players. I fudged it with DJ Moore. Technically not 35, but wanted to make sure I was still building a team that I would otherwise build. Dak Prescott, Barkley, Josh Jacobs, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, Trey McBride. My guy Mark has another idea. 3 different mini stacks. All right. 3 mini stacks there. Do you mean from the same team, or like mini correlations from the same game? 3 pairs of teammates, or just 3 different game environments? Let's spin the wheel again. We can do another draft here. All All right, last two picks, running back, running back. This is a good one, right? Because it is hard to find well projecting running backs late in these drafts. There's always some scrolls here available. But if we look who are realistically the running backs that'll be available, like once you get past Chase Brown, you're in the Kenneth Walker, Kamara, Chuba, Brees, Kyron, ETN. There's a couple guys I like down here. I like ETN. I like Pollard. So this will be a fun one to see what a build looks like where we go with two late running backs. Bill? Yeah, I think Bill's in play for sure. All right, we got the 104 in this one. We've had a pretty good variety of draft slots through these drafts so far. All kinds of contests in the lobby. We obviously have the Dog Bowl qualifier. If you're looking for a lower price point for drafts instead of the $7 Battle Royale, there's the Wildcat, which is a $3 contest, but still 150 entry max. The Bomb is the big boys up there, $100 per entry. Fullback Dive, $25. Hurry Up is another really good one, $3, but only a 20 max. Engage 8, $5, 8 entry max. If I had a smaller bankroll and I was trying to figure out which contests to do, this is the section I'd be living in. Hurry Up, $3.20 max. Engage 8, $5 8 max. Cover 4, $7 4 entry. And then even this victory formation and these extra points, $5 single entry, $20 single entry. Those are the contests I'd be playing. And you can max that for what? Let me make sure I'm not on the clock here as I talk through contest selection. I am on the clock. All right, good thing I came back over here. Let's go ahead and do CeeDee Lamb this time. We did Barkley last time. We can do CeeDee Lamb here. But you could max, the Hurry Up would be $60. The Engage 8 would be $40, so you're up to $100 there. Cover 4 would be $128. And then if you did the extra point, $133. If I had around $100 bankroll, $100 to $150, that's what I would put it in. It's very fun to shot take in the big BR. But again, 55,992 entrants this week. You play in some of these smaller contests, the Hurry Up has a fraction of that, 7,500. All right, CeeDee Lamb here. Our challenge is last two picks, running back. So I'm going to queue out or gray out the running back so I'm not tempted by any falling values here. We'll see what Troy does. I think I saw Troy in the chat. I will be taking one of Puka or JSN. Love getting Puka here. Puka, another guy with just an awesome role. It was sweet to see him get that rushing touchdown too. That's just the stuff that makes you feel good as a fantasy manager. When these guys are getting touches every which way, taking a carry for a touchdown. Puka's such a dog. All right, now I'm going to gray out wide receiver because we're taking two running backs. So now these next two picks are going to be quarterback, tight end. Tyler Warren, this one's kind of tricky for me because on the one hand, I do like the Q tag. I think you're getting a little bit of a discount relative to kind of his upside right now, but he also falls in a range that is typically kind of tricky for tight ends. And I talk about this in the column that I'll post today. But these tight ends 4, 5, and 6, they just don't project that much differently than the tight ends 7, 8, 9, 10. And so that can be a little tough on how I want to play things, because they're going to come with, 80+% ownership. And yet the other guys who will be at 20% ownership are just not that different. So generally I kind of am passing over the tight ends 4 to 6 on a slate. But I like that I'm going to be able to get either Bowers or Tucker Kraft here. Bowers goes, so I'll get my first Tucker Kraft share. And now we'll be doing a quarterback and then 2 running backs. Obviously, Dak with CeeDee's good. Jordan Love with Tucker Kraft is good. I don't think I'm going to mess around with Matthew Stafford on the road at Philly. I could also do some naked quarterbacks here as well. Daniel Jones, always a good naked quarterback option. Drake May is a good naked quarterback option. Bo Nix is. The Jordan Love to Tucker Kraft is kind of fun. I mean, he's like the clear wide receiver 1 there. Obviously, Dak is kind of the chalk selection. We did Dak last draft, though, naked, albeit. But let's do Jordan Love to Tucker Kraft, and now we'll finish this off with 2 running backs and see what the room gives us. Jordan Love to Tucker Kraft, CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua. But you can already kind of see here, just by doing these challenges, the variety of the builds I'm getting here. I should also mention, if you guys want to be able to have access to the full utilization report, the league sync, all of that stuff that I've been pulling up on screen here, you can get access to that via the Fantasy Life Plus subscription. You can always get 20% off that sub with promo code Pete. Comes out to like $7 or $8 a month. Really good deal here. You can see this is my league sync. So I have all my FFPC leagues in here. I got all of my guillotine leagues. I got my leagues on MFL. This is the hometown league I'm doing with some Boston industry people here. Super slick stuff here for reviewing your entire fantasy portfolio. You can go over to the free agents and quickly see, based on our ranks, utilization score, matchup, everything, who's available in your specific league. It's really, really good stuff. All right, 2 running backs here. So we'll do one. We'll go, let's see. We did Chase Brown. Let's do Gene T here. We'll grab him and say, hey, maybe the Raiders finally stop messing around. And then we'll do one more fun scroll here for the second running back. I like this shout out. Love playing Love with Tucker or Wicks this week when Cleveland has been so good against the run so far. Yeah, let me go. I want to go see that the DVP for Cleveland versus the run. Yeah, they've been top 7 there. So fantasy boost. Let's see, what are they? I guess they've been a little bit middle of the pack. As far as that. I mean, the half points PPR allowed, they're allowing 17.1. So yeah, top 10 against the run. And again, this is really small sample, just over 2. But I also think like Cleveland can be plucky, right? Like if Joe Flacco's playing well, they have enough offensive weaponry to keep a game close. So again, if you get Cleveland pushing Green Bay, that's where it could really be fun. Let's go ahead and do ETN here. Let's go ahead and do ETN. He's a really nice scroll, 35.4. I'm excited as anyone about Tootin, but I mean, ETN has been awesome so far. Lead back here. I'm not scared of a matchup versus Houston. We can look at ETN's role here. Solid utilization score, 78. Where does that rank here? That is top 13. Top 13 overall. 64% of the snaps there. 56% of the rushing attempts. Decent target share. 9% of the targets. Overall, RB9 for PPR so far. And yet he's completely free in these drafts, ADP of 35.4. So this team ends up, our challenge was 2 late running back picks, RB, and we go CeeDee Lamb and Puka, come back, grab Tucker Kraft, then stack him with Jordan Love, and then finish it off with Ashton Jeanty and Travis Etienne. Let's go ahead and do one more challenge here. And in the comments, if you guys end up watching this after the fact, we're streaming this live on Thursday. But if you guys have ideas to add to the wheel, let me know. All right, this one is RB tight end pairing. So from the same team, an RB tight end pairing. So before or as I enter this draft, I actually want to look and try to scope out which running back tight end pairing would I actually be comfortable with. Bijan with Kyle Pitts, I would be comfortable with. Barkley with Goddard, I would be comfortable with. JT with Tyler Warren, I would be comfortable with. Brock Bowers, Jeanty, I think would be solid. Obviously, Jacobs and Tucker Kraft. There's a bunch of them. Actually, now that I look at it, Jordan Mason with Hawkinson. So yeah, I think we have plenty of room to work with here. Pollard Chig. Yeah, I guess that's definitely on the Galaxy Brain side of the spectrum. Kamara, Jawan Johnson. Javonte Williams, Jake Ferguson. So we'll make this work. Maybe we probably save the tight end for the end. We'll see how it breaks. We shall see how it breaks. You guys are sick. AJ Barner and Sharps. That's some sick stuff. Let's do Barkley. Or you know what? If I'm not going to end up with much Tyler Warren, maybe this challenge is a good chance to do it. I don't have to go JT Warren. I can figure out what other running back, but this gives me an option there. Yeah. You guys are out of pocket now. Manungai and Colston Loveland. That is as slappy as it gets. I think we would need a 400,000 person contest to be digging that deep into the barrel. Judkins Fannin. So, I mean, I know we're half joking, half serious here. I start to, when you look at the team total, you look at the other options, I do wonder, if that's getting too thin. I don't think Fannin's too thin, but I still think how much pass work Judkins is losing. He lost a lot to Sampson and Ford, even in his game back. I don't hate the idea, though. I'm just talking it through. Here. I think what I'll do here, I want to give myself a safe out. Like if I miss out on Tyler Warren for this challenge, I kind of want to have a safe out here. But let's do this first. Let's grab a wide receiver. Let's grab JSN, another guy whose target share has just been unreal. Back-to-back games, over 100 yards. Back-to-back games with 10-plus targets. Just hasn't found the end zone yet. Now at home versus New Orleans. We'll grab him here at 10. Yeah, I think Jordan Mason or Javonte are good ones here. So Jordan Mason's an interesting one, right? We haven't talked about him today. I wrote about him in the column. He's going to be mega chalk on DraftKings this week. I believe his price tag's $5,200. Completely mispriced for a starting running back. Let's grab Jordan Mason here so we can talk about him. And then Hawkinson is a decent consolation prize if we miss out on Warren. But obviously the price on DraftKings is completely mispriced, right? And so he's going to be really popular. I'm estimating 40 to 50% of all rosters in most contests, and even higher in small field will have him. On Underdog, his price quickly corrected, right? A lot of people who were drafting early were aggressively drafting him. He was the RB7 before I started the stream when I looked, which is pretty efficient relative to projections. I was looking at some projections that had him as the RB7 on the slate as well. So that snapped into an efficient spot very quickly. I do prefer him on Underdog this week, right? Where I do think the half point PPR scoring, a back like Jordan Mason, who doesn't historically catch a ton of passes, it's more favorable to touchdowns. He's going to get all the work. They should have some good goal line opportunities there. DraftKings, it's a tougher sell for me, where that ownership, I think, can start to be a problem at plus 50% or whatever. But on Underdog, I definitely will have some third round Jordan Mason shares. But yeah, I think if we get Tyler Warren here, we go Tyler Warren. I don't mind the Hawkinson pairing either. But I think Tyler Warren and Jonathan Taylor as like the two engines of the offense. I like that, I think, conceptually better if I'm forced to do a running back tight end pairing here. And then we'll just have a quarterback and wide receiver left. I don't want to draft Sam Darnold. I also, on teams like this, so this is a good conversation as far as big battle royale versus small field stuff. In a small field contest, I would probably just take Daniel Jones here and say, hey, I'm already betting big on the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren. Let me tack on Danny Dimes. But in this big contest where I need to be hitting 99th percentile outcomes for all of these guys, touchdowns that Jonathan Taylor are scoring are touchdowns that Danny Dimes isn't rushing in, and vice versa. Those guys in their super ceiling scenarios are negatively correlated. I'm okay taking that slight negative correlation in a smaller field contest where I don't have to beat as many people. I'm less comfortable with it in these large field contests. Let's see. What do we want to do here? Let's grab Mike Evans again and see if we can get Baker to come back to us. And if not, we can just do a naked quarterback. We can do the Jaden thing. Not that Mike Evans needs any additional targets. He's already getting peppered with them, but Emeka Egbuka didn't practice today again. So Mike Evans could be the whole damn show here this week. So a Baker to Mike Evans stack, Jaden Daniels. I'm trying to think what other quarterbacks would I consider naked here. Bo Nix. So Baker Mayfield does go, which happens. My preference here would be to just take Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels goes. Tony likes Herbert. I do think he's a good quarterback to roll naked as well. There's really no other correlation angles I want to play in this game. So I am just kind of shooting for the highest upside. Let's get a little bit of a scroll down here. I think Bo Nix. We'll go Bo Nix. I mean, his ADP relative to Herbert's is going to be a pretty significant ownership gap. Bo Nix bounced back there in week 2 on the road at Indy. I think this will be an even better game environment here. We'll go Bo Nix, naked Bo Nix here. Bo Nix, Jonathan Taylor, Jordan Mason, JSN, Mike Evans, Tyler Warren. So we nailed our running back tight end pairing as ordained by the wheel. Got in a couple other target monsters at wide receiver, one off Jordan Mason, and then naked Bo Nix here. And again, similar thought when we were talking through the Dallas stuff. Bo Nix, a quarterback who could rush. You know, you get 50 yards rushing from him. You cross your fingers and hopes he scores a rushing touchdown. And then he spreads the ball. A little Troy Franklin, a little Cortland Sutton, a little Marvin Mims. None of those guys score 20 plus points. bada bing, bada boom, Bo Nix as an optimal late round naked quarterback could certainly get the job done. So there you have it, guys. We could do, these were all of my first BR drafts on the slate. So we can quickly recap these teams here. We did the Jaden Daniels to Brock Bowers mini correlation here. I believe it was this the Q tag game one? I think so. I don't even remember what our first challenge was. Our next one was the one we just did, the running back and tight end pairing. We had the backdoor stack, wide receiver quarterback stack, did Ladd and Justin Herbert. We had two scrolls to end the draft, two players with ADPs higher than 35. We did DJ Moore and Cortland Sutton. And then we had which was this one? Oh, your last two picks have to be running backs. And we did Genty and Travis Etienne. I enjoyed doing that. Can definitely bring that back. Like I said, still figuring out the exact format of this show, but I do really like the combination of suggestions from you guys and the wheel there as we kind of talk through the slate from a few different perspectives. Like I said, I'll be back here every week on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel at noon Eastern doing these DFS jams. If you guys have any other suggestions, let me know. Anything I should add to the wheel, drop them in the comments. Subscribe to the free Fantasy Life newsletter. I write that 5 days a week in your inbox for free every morning. The only days I don't write it are Friday and Saturdays. Otherwise, that is me hitting your inbox around 7 a.m. Eastern. But thank you all for tuning in. And if you guys want more Battle Royale content, join me for the Best Ball Bash at 3 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube channel. We'll see you guys next time here for the DFS Jam.